This happened during my struggling years. I had just moved out, working in a car wash. I lived in a small studio apartment. The apartment had no air conditioning. In the summers, the room used to get pretty heated up. Also, the constant worries about how the new life will turn out to be kept me awake. One night, I wasn't able to sleep due to previous reasons, so I decided to go for a night stroll. All the tenants in my building had their keys to the main entrance. Needless to say, the neighborhood was sketchy, and random robbery was an everyday occurrence in the area, so we had to lock the main door after leaving or entering the building. It was 2 a.m. and late enough, but I was young and needed some fresh air. I came out of the building and started walking by the sidewalks. The streets were mostly empty, with some addicts and homeless people passing out in the dark corner. A woman was eating from the garbage when she looked up, hearing my footsteps. She was clawing at a half-eaten sandwich, which had maggots crawling all over it. It wasn't my first time seeing someone eat from a dumpster. I ignored her and she went back to her sick picnic. Once in a while, cars drove by, but it was mostly quiet, accompanied by the night sounds. After walking for 10 minutes straight, I reached the city park. Thinking it would be better to kill time in the park than wander on these streets, I entered. The full moon illuminated the park quite well. Also, the light from the lamppost created a spooky atmosphere. I was sure that there was no one in the park except me until I saw a man sitting on a park bench. The bench was right under the lamppost, hence I could see the man. His head was down like he was sleeping. He wore a brown jacket, paired with oddly red leather pants. From his attire, he didn't seem like the other homeless people, so I thought he came for some air, just like me. There was a water fountain across the park, and I was thinking of visiting that, so I walked ahead. I was probably inches away from walking past him when he suddenly lifted his head to the sky. I stopped. His eyes were wide open, and he was staring at the clear night sky. Suddenly, he smiled and started counting the stars like a 9-year-old. He was pointing his fingers to each star and counting in a whispering voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The way he was smiling and counting the stars and looking at the sky kind of creeped me out. Not once, he looked at me. He behaved as if I didn't exist at that moment. I thought he must be high, so I walked past him. No sooner I stepped ahead, I heard a crunching noise behind me, like someone stepping on a twig. Turning around, I saw the man had now stood up from the bench. His arms were stretched out. He was still staring at the sky. "Hey, are you all right?" I asked in a fearful voice. I could feel the lump of tension curling up in my throat. What the hell is wrong with this dude? The man chuckled. Then the traveler in the dark thanks you for your tiny spark. He could not see which way to go if you did not twinkle so. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. And then he stopped and faced me. Our eyes met, and I got a clear glimpse of his face. I'd never seen such a calm yet scary face in my life. He had this blank stare that pierced into my soul. I couldn't stand him anymore. It was time to go back home. Standing in this stranded city park with a creepy, strange man that too, at this hour of the night, made me terrified for my life. I increased my pace and was constantly looking back to see if the man was following me, but he was standing under the lamppost, still watching me walk away. When I was about to leave the park, the sound of footsteps gave me goosebumps. As I turned around, I saw the man running at me at full speed. An ear-to-ear grin had now altered his calm face to a cruel one. I started running as well. I left the park and went on the sidewalks. The man did the same. There wasn't a single person on the street whom I could ask for help. I just kept running. I grabbed the keys beforehand because I knew if he catches me, that will be the end of my life. What seemed more horrifying was the fact that he was just running with a scary smile, not yelling, not laughing, not saying a single thing, just running behind me like he was enjoying this cat and mouse chase. I stomped on the building entrance. The key was in my hand. The man was behind me, and my hands were trembling. I went to unlock the door and the key fell. I panicked but quickly picked it up. The man was inches away when I succeeded in opening the door and slammed it hard once I got in. I was out of breath and drenched in sweat. The man stopped right outside the building door. The door was the only thing between us, creating separation. He was still staring at me with his hawk eyes. I was so stunned with panic and fear that my legs went numb. I too kept standing there, staring at him. He brought his face extremely close to the glass and said in a spine-chilling voice, "You are pretty. I bet you have a pretty scream." And then he walked away. His creepy singing echoed into the night. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world, so high, like a diamond in the sky." That was the last time I ever left the house at night alone. I never saw that man again. I'm still living in the same neighborhood, though I have changed the apartment. Often at night when I can't sleep, this most terrifying incident of my life keeps coming back to me. Scary singing man, I hope we never meet again.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video. If so, please leave a like. And also, a small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. If you want to support this channel and make this channel reach the 1 million mark, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can change your mind later. Enjoy.
Hey guys, my name is Alan. Today I want to tell you about my job. The only job I've ever had in my life, and for sure, one of the most dangerous jobs there is. I'm a truck driver. I'm sure you can imagine how difficult my job is and why it's so dangerous. I have to drive the truck for many hours, almost always without sleep and in a hurry, and to make it worse, in the dark. Apart from the fear of crashing or falling asleep at the wheel, people always ask me if I have any stories to tell, if I saw any ghosts or any strange occurrences while driving that endangered my life. Fortunately for them, I always have a story to tell them. I may not have fought any ghosts or beings from another planet, but this was a real danger. A danger that you, I, and anyone else may have experienced. That night, I was driving with my companion, Randy, a fellow I'd known my whole life, who decided to accompany me on his day off. Randy had just gotten divorced, and since he had no kids, he didn't have much to do. He was a good man, nice, pleasant, and entertaining, but he did talk his head off.
"Hey, are you sure you don't want to stop for a drink?" "I'm driving, Randy. You know I can't have anything to drink." "Well, at least have a coffee and I'll have a beer. We did that at the last stop. Are you trying to sabotage me? You're technically competition." "Hey, look at that."
As I looked out the window, I could see a large number of police cars passing me. They seemed to be in a hurry, as if looking for someone.
"Be careful. Maybe they're coming for you. For me. In any case, they were coming for you. Surely you didn't murder your ex-wife while you were drunk." "Nah, she's more likely to murder me. I should be worried." "I hope you have a good lawyer." "Hey, there's some trees here. Can you stop the truck?" "Why?" "I had too much beer, man. You know." "Are you peeing yourself again?" "Yep." "Okay, man. I guess I can stop driving for a while, too."
I stopped the truck, and Randy started to walk into the trees, getting more lost.
"Randy, what are you doing? Have you become selective with the trees?" "I can't pee if you're looking at me." "What makes you think I'd like to see you?" "I don't know, and I don't want to take the risk." Surely no one believes him when he says he's a truck driver.
Seconds passed, and Randy didn't come back. At first, I thought it was funny. He really should have been hanging on for a long time. But when the first minutes started to pass, I started to worry.
Hey, Randy? You there? You're gonna flood the forest. Hey, man, are you there?
Randy didn't answer me, and I started to worry. He wasn't drunk enough to pass out. He had barely been drinking, but maybe he ran into a wild animal or tripped and hurt himself on the trail. I grabbed my flashlight and went down to look for my friend. With the flashlight on, I walked into the forest. How far could he have gone?
Randy, where are you?
As if in answer to my call, I heard a voice coming from a tree. At that moment, I didn't realize that this voice didn't belong to my friend and that I should have never gone to her.
Over here.
I approached where the voice was coming from, and it belonged to a girl. She was against a tree, full of blood and scared. I rushed to her aid, but I saw a knife in her hands, and I took a step back.
Hey, lady, what happened to her? Are you hurt?
I couldn't help it.
What couldn't be helped? Do you need assistance? I can call an ambulance from here. The nearest hospital is several miles away.
I just couldn't help it. I'm sick of it. But when you see them, it's so tempting.
What are you talking about?
Without any difficulty, the girl stood up with the knife firmly in her hand and stared at me for the first time.
The police are out to get me, and I can't blame them. I know I'm doing something wrong, but I can't help it. I don't want to kill anymore. But when I have someone in front of me, I just want to kill them.
Lady, you're scaring me. Put the knife down.
Nail my knife into his body. Feel his ribs break. The noise to the flesh when it's pierced. And the blood that starts coming out like a fountain of water.
Lady, you are not wounded. That's not your blood, is it?
I need to do it. One more time. One more time, and I promise this will be the last. I know I say this all the time, but I promise. With you, I will stop.
The woman lunged violently at me, but before she could thrust the knife into me, I grabbed her arm and threw her. She hit a tree, and with a huge smile, she ran into the forest, losing sight of me. Did she run away? No. She just didn't want me to see her so she could attack me again when I was unprepared. I could hear the sound of the grass, of the plants. She was close by. I ran to my truck, but on the way, I found something I didn't want to see. Randy's body was already lifeless in a tree. It was his blood running down the body of that crashed woman.
Randy, no!
Suddenly, I heard a noise in the grass near me. The woman lunges at me again with the knife in her hands, but filled with anger and sadness for my friend. I grab her hand again and stop her. We both struggled, but it was clear that I had the upper hand.
Look at my friend! Look what you did to him, you monster! He was a good man. Sure, he could stop you, and he didn't because you're a woman! I'm not that good!
I was about to pull the knife out of her, but without my expecting it, all my resistance ended when she kicked me in the crotch. I fell to the ground, exhausted and full of pain.
So you were a good person. I'm sorry. I didn't want to kill you. I always looked for a good person in my life. I'm sorry.
Was she talking to my dead friend? I got up to see what was going on, and when I did, I almost threw up. The woman was kissing Randy's corpse, while with her hand, she was still sticking the knife into him.
You're crazy! You're completely crazy!
Without paying attention to me, the woman's kisses turned into bites. I turned and ran as fast as I could, while from a distance, I watched as this woman ate my friend's face, only stopping to scream.
I'm sorry!
I got into the truck, and as I started it up, I called the police. That night, I never heard from her again. Shortly thereafter, the police contacted me to recognize my friend's body. Apparently, the police arrived very quickly. They were nearby as they were looking for Aurora, the girl who tried to kill me. When they arrived, she was still with Randy's body, eating it. When I talked with the police and told them the whole story, they were disgusted, but they weren't surprised at all. Apparently, this was the way she used to act. That same night, there were reports that she was seen where I made my last stop with Randy. She had gotten into the back of our truck and tried to get away, but the temptation to kill us came over her. The police told me that all the guilt she felt was acted out. She was a psychopath, incapable of emotion or empathy, but she loved to pretend she did. The only thing that was real about that encounter was her desire for human flesh, as she had vorophilia, a paraphilia that causes those who have it to feel the need to eat or be eaten by humans. The police tried to explain to me many other technicalities of Aurora's story, but I was not interested in knowing anything else. After I was a witness in the trial, I never got involved in the subject again. From that day on, I never stopped my truck at night, and when I did, it was always in a crowded place. I would never again expose myself to being alone at night, at the mercy of someone who wanted to harm me or my loved ones. I don't think I'm ever going to feel comfortable staying at home alone ever again. My name is Susan, and I had a horrifying experience several years back that has led me to fear a few things. Romance, for one, and being alone at night for another. It all started on a Tuesday night. My husband had texted me earlier that day saying he was stuck in a terrible traffic jam and wouldn't be able to make it home in time. He said he was booking a motel just outside the town and would be back the next day.
I'm super sorry, sweetie. I'm so tired, and this traffic is insane. I won't be able to make it in time,
he said on the phone.
I'll call you when I get there.
Okay, darling. Be safe.
I will. You know, I'm always safe when I'm thinking of you,
he said before hanging up. I sighed and went back to my book. I wasn't scared of being alone at night. I was used to it. But as the hours dragged on, I began to feel more bored and restless. I had done all the chores and errands that needed to be done, so I was left with nothing to do but sit in my room and wait for my husband to call. Knowing I'd have the whole house to myself, I decided to take a long hot bath and relax for the night. It had been a stressful few weeks, and I was looking forward to some peace and quiet. I stretched and yawned before heading to the bathroom. I grabbed the bath salt and poured it into the tub. I lit some candles and incense, and soon the bathroom was steaming with a warm, calming scent. As I stepped into the bubble-filled bathtub and began to relax, I heard a knock downstairs, a sort of thud as if someone was trying to get in or something had fallen. Walking downstairs, I felt slightly uncomfortable, but I continued. Something had probably just fallen over, and I was sure that it was nothing to be afraid of. I slowly opened the door to the living room, where I saw nothing. Everything was as it should have been, and I was relieved. I turned around to go back upstairs, but as I did, I felt this chill on my back that made me freeze, as if a cold wind caressed my skin. The window was open, and I stared at it as the curtains gently swayed in the wind. The night was cold, and I could feel it coming in through the window. I hurried to close it, but before I could do so, a dark figure appeared outside. My heart stopped when I saw the face of the man outside. He was wearing a cheap Halloween mask and a black hoodie. He stood at the window, staring at me as I clutched the open window.
Come outside, Susan,
he said, his voice garbled and menacing as if he was chewing on something to disguise his voice. Slamming the window frame shut, I screamed and ran for my life. I felt his eyes following me from the window as I ran away from the window and heard a crash moments later as the glass shattered. The man, with his knife glowing in the moonlight, stepped through the window with his mask on and his hood up. I had desperately shut and latched the living room door and ran up the stairs to the second floor, clutching my towel around my body. I felt, at least right then, that I had the home field advantage at least. I knew the layout of the house. The intruder did not. I ran through each room, trying to make it impossible for him to get me. With a cold chill running down my spine, I found a place to hide and settled in. Our house had a pretty unique layout, but there was one thing I was sure the intruder wouldn't find. In one of the rooms, we had a wall where my husband and I cut out an entryway to the attic, and I was sure it wouldn't be visible to an outsider. Flattening myself against the wall, I heard the intruder's steps come closer and closer. Creaking, the door to the room I was in opened, and I heard his heavy breathing. I held my breath, fear coursing through my veins. A voice spoke directly outside the door to the attic where I was hidden.
"Oh, Susan, I know you're here."
The voice sounded eerily familiar. I heard the creaking of his footsteps coming closer and closer before the masked man finally stepped inside the room. In a split second, he was standing right in front of me, and I screamed, turning to run. As I did, however, I tripped and fell, my towel falling off my body as I hit the ground. The intruder laughed, and as I stumbled to my feet, I glanced towards his face. Perhaps it was the excitement of the moment, but the mask had partially slipped from his face, and what I saw made the recognition even more terrifying. My husband stood before me, his knife raised as he laughed.
What are you doing? Jeff, what is wrong with you?
I managed to ask, though my voice was shaking. He simply laughed even harder and stepped forward, pushing me back against the wall. His eyes were like I had never seen them before, eyes of a pure maniac, and it was then I knew that Jeff had lost his grip on reality and sanity.
"Don't worry, Susan. I'm doing this for us,"
he said as he pulled out a syringe from his pocket with one hand, still holding the knife in the other. Screaming in terror, I kicked his shins, making him trip as I dragged myself away. I could hear him cursing behind me as I ran to the door to the attic, shoving myself through and running down the stairs of my house as I heard him scream in anger. As I ran down the stairs, though, I heard his footsteps following me rapidly as he ran, the knife poised above his head. I screamed in fear. Suddenly, though, I heard a loud bang and turned around to see him tripping, falling down the stairs as he wildly tossed the knife towards me in a desperate bid to make me stop. Thud. He fell at the bottom of the stairs, motionless. I didn't stop running, though, until I got to the neighbor's house and dialed 911. My husband, Jeff, was eventually arrested and sentenced to a psychiatric hospital. The doctors said that he had been suffering from severe paranoia and delusions, which caused him to become violent and irrational. Since then, I have had an almost constant fear of being alone at night. It's a fear that has grown so large that I now suffer from agoraphobia and panic attacks when I have to stay home alone. You're probably wondering why, or maybe you think it's just because of that situation that I can barely sleep, and because of that one night that I keep a loaded gun under my pillow. No, it's not just because of that one night. It's because a while back, I got a phone call from the hospital where Jeff is staying. They said he'd escaped and gone missing, and that the only information they had was that he had written over and over on the walls of his cell,
"I'll help her."
Call me crazy, but sometimes I think I hear things in my house moving around, and I feel as if several times my bed has been moved while I was sleeping in it. It might just be my overactive imagination, but it's enough to make me feel uneasy and more than a little afraid of being alone in my house at night. I don't know where he is. All I know is that he's coming back.